The waters around the Lummi Reservation have stood the test of time. The water has seen the trials of the Lummi people.
Oh, he loved the water. Yeah, he grew up on the water. Hi, my name's Joseph Morris, and I've lost 4 family members in the last few years with fentanyl.
Joe has lived on the Lummi Reservation most of his life, a life impacted by addiction.
His name was Lindy. Yeah.
Fentanyl took the life of Joe's brother, Lindy.
The water was his oyster. He loved fishing.
Lindy's love of water was strong, but his addiction to fentanyl was stronger.
We had a really good relationship until he got into his addiction.
Fentanyl is highly addictive. It is 50 times more potent than heroin. It is cheap, it is easy to buy, and it is tearing the Lummi tribe apart. There's evidence of the crisis all throughout the town. Back in September, 4 Lummi tribal members died of fentanyl overdoses in just one deadly week. Joe's brother Lindy was one of those 4.
He lived a real rough life.
Joe knows recovery is hard.
I was a drug dealer. I lived as a drug dealer. I went to prison in '09.
Joe was a cocaine dealer. He says he got life-changing help from God.
It'll be 15 years this Christmas.
Now he works as a peer counselor with Lummi Counseling Services. The crisis is so profound, the Lummi opened a treatment facility, the New Life Center, dedicated to opioid addiction.
When one person is affected by fentanyl, it affects the whole community.
Dina Point, Joe's wife, is interim director of the program.
We used to be shocked when there was an overdose, and now it feels like it's just like, oh, there's another overdose.
Resources on the reservation, that's what can make all the difference. Adding not only therapy and medication, but culture to the recovery process.
You need that to heal. You need that to be whole.
The center has a culture teacher and a culture room where people can reconnect with their heritage.
This is what our ancestors did.
Dina knows this is important. She says culture in this culture room saved her life.
I lost my daughter to spinal meningitis, and that was the perfect way for me to cope with that loss. And so that's when I fell into that cycle of addiction.
Dina was addicted to OxyContin for more than 13 years.
This program right here is what saved my life. My culture saved my life. My children saved my life.
The pull of fentanyl is so strong, it's torn some people away from families and away from their homes. Dozens of Lummi are now living just outside of the reservation in an encampment for the homeless, nicknamed Little Lummi.
That right there shows you the power of fentanyl, because we've never had our people actually leave the reservation and go be homeless to feed their habit, their addiction.
Dina's team says there are 4 to 8 overdoses in the encampment every single day.
It's a choice of life and death, really.
Lummi tribal member Jade Ridley was at the camp when an outreach worker asked if she wanted help at the New Life Center.
So I took my opportunity and came.
After a 10-year fentanyl addiction, she took the step for herself and her child. The day we talked to her, she said she'd been sober for a week.
It's exhausting being out on the streets, and I just want my life back, basically, I guess. I want my daughter back.
This month, the tribe took their crisis from Washington State to Washington, D.C.
These impacts of fentanyl and opioids at home have been very drastic and very overwhelming.
The Lummi chairman urged congressional leaders to declare the fentanyl epidemic a national emergency.
There's so many different pieces to this, but if we start with the highest level possible, that the United States of America declares this a national emergency, I believe that we can overcome a lot of the barriers that we're facing.
To fully understand this crisis, you have to go back in time to the historical and generational trauma Indigenous people have endured.
You're healing from, they used to say 7 generations back, say when we lost our culture and lost our language,
Rosalie Scott has lived on the reservation for 80 years and has worked in recovery services for 50.
There was about 600 people back in the day when I was growing up. There was just alcohol then.
You saw how alcohol impacted people. How is fentanyl different?
I feel like it's a worse problem. It's scary. Don't know how to reach them. How do we reach our people to bring them back?
But don't underestimate the people of the sea. The Lummi. For millennia, they've shown their strength and resilience. And this time is no different.
It's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take the community to do it, but we can do it.
I'm here at the Miami Seaquarium, where Tokate has spent the last 53 years living in one of the world's smallest orca tanks.
When you've lived in Miami your entire life, you know there is an orca there named Lolita.
For more than half a century, families like the Grimaldis flock to the Miami Seaquarium.
She's sort of like part of the community. They bring you here when you're a little kid.
All to get a glimpse of their star attraction, Lolita, the killer whale. Today, we know her as Tokate.
Then you bring your children, and so one day you're enlightened and you're like, wait a second, it's so wrong.
Over the past decade, awareness about Tokate's deteriorating living conditions bubbled to the surface in Miami, revealing a sad truth behind the star of many happy home movies.
What you don't know, it's obviously, the conditions that this beautiful Lolita has lived in for so many years. There's no home, there's no time out, there's no let me get some rest, let me relax. That is her entire life. She can't even stay away or hide from the scorching sun in South Florida.
In 2015, Sylvia Grimaldi connected with animal rights activist Alejandro Ariel Dintino while protesting outside the Seaquarium.
Yeah, I feel so sad because when you see how she lives, the tank is 3 times her body size, she can swim deep, she can do anything.
Toki's medical records paint a dire picture of life inside this aquarium, with the 57-year-old orca living in dirty water, being fed rotten fish, and forced to perform for crowds despite injuries.
Her story broke my heart, so from that moment I thought I had to do something.
While the protests went on for several years, it wasn't until 2018 that momentum behind the fight to free Toki got a huge boost, thanks to the Lummi Nation.
I started supporting them, and I can't believe just 4 years later, we are close to achieve this goal. We are very, very close. We changed the history, it's unbelievable.
Thank you so much for joining us.
On March 30th, 2023, Tokate's new corporate owners, the Dolphin Company, made history by signing a pledge agreeing to the orca's return to Washington waters.
More than just moving Lolita to a place where she will be better, she will become a symbol for us and the future generations.
Now, are there no risks at all? Of course there are some risks. There are risks today for any one of us wherever we are. But is this an opportunity to bring her home? Yes, it is.
The plan to return Tokate to Washington was developed under the guidance of Charles Vinnick with the group Friends of Toki. First, Tokate would be coaxed into a custom-made stretcher and lifted out of her aquarium with a crane into a small container filled with ice water. From there, onto a cargo plane for a 6-hour flight to the Bellingham Airport. Next, Toki will be loaded onto a barge to transport her to ancestral waters in the Salish Sea. There, she'll be put into an underwater sea pen at a private location. She'll receive round-the-clock medical care and feedings. She's expected to live in that sea pen for the rest of her life.
She is active, she is responsive, she's just full of life. And she has demonstrated a will to live that, frankly, almost no other whale has ever demonstrated. 56, 57 years old, ups and downs.
Vinnick's team is already working to secure approval for Toki's release from the several required federal agencies. If approved, those helping fund the move say she could be home by the end of 2023, but only if she remains in good health.
All of this kind of life force all gathered together to bring her home, and it's a tremendous opportunity that we have to work as expeditiously as possible to bring it to fruition.
So we'll just go like right around here.
Yeah. Back in Miami, Toki is no longer on display to the public.
Scully Chaktanat.
But a wall and some fencing won't keep out.
We're here to tell you how much you mean to us and how much you mean to the world.
Messages of love.
You're so beautiful, girl, and your day is coming.
For the journey ahead.
The entire world is praying for you, Toki Tai. She's a native sister. She's a Salish Sea daughter. She represents everything native and everything pure. There's no what if or what if something happens along the way. She is going home, period.
Well, the cost of Toki's transport, as well as the construction of her sea pen, will be covered by Indiana Colts owner Jim Irsay, and some estimate that cost could be upwards of $20 million. In Miami, PJ Randawa, King 5 News. Support for Toki's release has come from all over the world in recent years, with even celebrities like Cher joining in. But there's a very vocal group of Toki's former trainers and veterinarians who say this is not the right plan.
Husbandry behavior. This is her participating in her own health care.
I spent 18 years with her. That is 35% of my life. Forming, such an incredible love and bond with this animal.
She is truly a unique and special animal. I trust her with my child. Introducing my child to her after she was born. My child calls every killer whale Toki now. She loves whales because of Toki.
Animal trainers Marnie Wood and Heather Keenan have each spent more than a decade caring for Tokite at the Miami Seaquaria. They've since left the industry, but say they had to speak up after hearing about the plan to release Tokite into a sea pen in Puget Sound.
I believe it without a doubt, and I know Lolita wants to get to free waters. I don't care what anyone says. She wants, she's lived this long to have this opportunity.
I don't think it's based on what's in her best interest. I feel like it is based on what is in people's best interest and what people think is a virtuous moment, for them to feel good, but it's not looking out for this animal and this individual.
We've received death threats.
We aren't here to promote the Miami Seaquarium or the Dolphin Company. We're only here for her best interest.
The day of the news conference when they announced this, I resigned 5 minutes later. Maybe they think they're doing the right thing, but I disagree, and I don't want to be involved.
Dr. Michael Renner has been part of Tokite's veterinary team on and off for the past 30 years.
It's not like we're against releasing marine mammals or sea pens. I'm all for them, but there are candidates that make sense. Time in captivity is number one, or time in human care. 50 years is unprecedented. It's just, she's not a good candidate. Simple as that.
Since the announcement Tokite would be moved, Dr. Renner and others have formed the group Truth for Toki, dedicated to bringing awareness to the risks of what they call an ill-fated plan.
This individual is not a big fan of change. We introduced a new animal into her pool many years ago, a bottlenose dolphin, and Toki had never seen a bottlenose dolphin before, and she was absolutely terrified. You can only imagine this type of change compared to transporting her all the way across the country, dropping her into a sea pen.
The group doesn't believe she can survive transport at her age, and even if she does, they say her release could endanger her own family.
She's been exposed to things here that they haven't been exposed to. That's putting an endangered pod of orcas, wild orcas that are already in trouble, at more risk. So she's a risk to them.
Yet Howard Garrett, co-founder of the Orca Network, says Toki will be assessed for pathogens by a team of veterinarians and federal authorities as a condition of her move.
Nobody, I mean me more than anybody, I think, does not want any harm to come to southern resident orcas. So we can't let that happen, but fortunately there are ways to prevent that.
But how long can Tokatay stay at the Miami Seaquarium? Last year, Miami-Dade County deemed Tokatay's arena, including the smallest orca tank in North America, to be an unsafe structure due to corrosion and disrepair.
We all recognize that the situation she's in isn't great. Could it be better? Of course. And we want to do what's best for her.
Over the years, USDA inspections have found Tokatay's been eating rotten fish and living in a tank filled with algae and chipping paint. Some have wondered, why didn't her trainer speak up about these conditions in the past?
We have no control over the size of her pool. We would love nothing more than for her to have a larger facility and it to be either upgraded now or a new facility built for her.
Or if none of those are an option, moving her to SeaWorld. We know that they currently have the proper infrastructure, they have the experienced staff already in place.
SeaWorld Orlando has not responded to our inquiries about this idea, but Dr. Renner believes Tokatay should stay where she is.
I'd like her to live out the rest of her life in her home. The place she's called home for 50 years, the place she knows best. She's not stressed, she's content in that pool. I know that well, very well. I've known her for 30 years. She wouldn't have lived this long if it was horrible conditions, as people are saying.
Ultimately, the group believes they are Tokatay's family, and she already is home.
That's really all we want, is to be a part of the conversation, figure out what the best plan for Toki is as an individual, not as a symbol for killer whales across the country or the world. She's not a symbol, she is Toki.
She deserves, much more than this plan. She deserves a happy, healthy rest of her life.
While Toki's previous trainers and veterinarians may not support her move, we visited this aquarium and talked to staff. They told us that they do want her to go home. Also, the dolphin company recently put out a statement indicating that her current trainers are helping to prepare her for the journey ahead. In Miami, PJ Randawa, King 5 News. Raise your hand if you believe you've risked your health to look beautiful.
Yes. I will never forget that burning sensation. And I remember feeling like my scalp was on fire.
I remember getting my hair straightened and my mom using the hot iron, burning my ear. So painful for me.
And everybody was doing it.
Generations of Black women using hair straightening chemicals known as relaxers that can be painful, costly, and worse. Who has heard that the chemicals in these products, many people believe they cause cancer?
Me.
Yes.
Yes.
Now the state of Washington is taking steps to ban several dangerous chemicals found in cosmetic products marketed to communities of color. The cancer risk associated with many of these products has been documented for decades. A 2022 study by the National Cancer Institute found women using chemical hair straightening products are at a higher risk of uterine cancer than women who reported not using them.
Every Black person knows a Black person that has had a cancer that has been grounded in some environmental or some kind of chemical.
The result? Communities of color put at risk over the pressure to conform to often Eurocentric beauty standards. These clients of hairstylist and salon owner Jackie Christian know it all too well.
And I think it was just like we were also in a time when society kind of dictated that good hair was straight and bad hair was nappy.
That pressure often also fueled by discrimination in the workplace. In 2020, researchers at Duke University found Black women with natural hairstyles are perceived to be less professional and less competent than women with straight hair.
And that's grounded in patriarchy and misogyny, right? This idea that, there's some perfect way to be in the world.
New product testing conducted earlier this year in state labs confirmed the presence of cancer-causing chemicals in many cosmetic products marketed and sold to women of color in Washington, including lipsticks, foundation, lotions, and chemical hair relaxers.
We detected formaldehyde in 26 out of 30 of those products, and we found lead in 3 out of 20 of the products that we tested. And during development, our brains are so sensitive to lead exposure, there's a reason to be concerned.
State toxicologist Marissa Smith explains why these toxic chemicals end up in beauty products.
Sometimes it has to do with the function. So skin lightening creams and hair relaxers, they're just serving a function that's more likely to have toxic chemicals.
A lot of these companies that are manufacturing these darker shades, they are not Black owned, so they don't have a dog in the fight. You know, they're just making money.
The results of the testing led to a new law in Washington, which will restrict the sale of personal care products that contain 7 classes of dangerous chemicals, including lead. Salon owner Jackie Christian says it's a move long delayed.
They don't care about our health. They don't care that we're burying our loved ones and and they don't care that our young women are having hysterectomies before they can even have families. They don't care about that. That does not faze them. But losing money does.
But these women know, despite the cancer risks, there are still some minds that won't be swayed.
Who knows people who are aware that these products could cause cancer but still use them anyways?
Yes. I convinced maybe a handful of clients to let's not do a relaxer. They was like, as opposed to what? And I was like, let's press it. Some said, okay, we'll try this so we can stop this breakage. And some was like, no, we're gonna see you later. We're gonna go over here where they're gonna keep relaxing our hair. And so what I began to notice was the hair was growing back, it was healthy.
It started off with just, okay, this is not good for our hair. We can't keep doing this. And then I think it later just turned on into, okay, this is reclaiming our culture.
Reclaiming their culture, preserving their health, and breaking the cycle for their own children.
It's a beautiful thing to see them kind of growing up in a world where they don't even have to second guess if their hair is presentable or not.
Washington's Toxic-Free Cosmetics Act will ban PFAS chemicals, formaldehyde, and formaldehyde-releasing agents from cosmetics by 2025. It will also provide incentives for small businesses to make safer cosmetics. For Facing Race, I'm PJ Randawa. If you have a younger sibling, you know.
I think Kit always wanted to be really close to me, but being the older sibling, I was like, no, get away from me.
At just 4 years old, Kit Mora was adopted into the same Yakima family as Charlotte grew.
And then when they started living with us, it was kind of rocky at first because they would always talk about like really scary abuse that they had gone through and things that they had seen. But I think it ended up just bringing us a lot closer. We were super close for a long time.
That closeness may have helped Kit open up about their identity. Eventually, the family learned Kit was non-binary.
They identified more with kind of being in the middle of the spectrum versus, you know, picking masculine or feminine, and it made them comfortable, it made them happy.
In 2021, Kit moved away from their adopted family to reconnect with their birth mother in Omak, several hours away. A few months later, Kit disappeared.
We say it was November of 2021 because that's last social media presence, last time any of our family spoke to Kit. Kit, you know, isn't the most social person as a whole, like they're very anxiety-ridden, but at the same time, they always craved being around certain people like Amethyst.
Probably my best friend. I knew them from kindergarten to up until they disappeared.
When best friend Amethyst McCart learned none of their friends had heard from Kit in several months, she started to investigate.
Me and my grandma Julie drove up to Omak, and when we got there, the police told us that Lori said they had ran away.
Lori Sue Nelson is Kit's biological mother. According to police, Lori reported Kit as a runaway in September 2022, almost a year after Charlotte or Amethyst had heard from Kit. We reached out to Lori several times for this story, but haven't heard back.
If Kit were to have run away in any sense, they would have came back to Yakima and came back to the people that they know would support them, like their grandparents or their friends.
Kit wouldn't even go to the store with their friend when they were, staying the night at a friend's house without telling my mom. Like, somebody always knew where Kit was, so it's really out of character.
While they try to remain optimistic, Kit's family knows as a non-binary Native teen, Kit faces some terrible risks. According to the FBI, hate crimes against transgender and gender non-conforming individuals have increased 587% between 2013 and 2019. A 2022 study by the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans, and Intersex Association found that most non-binary or trans murder victims in 2020 were Indigenous women and trans women of color.
I think that being Native definitely put Kit at a higher risk for something like this.
They just wanted to get to know their mom. They weren't happy like they thought they were going to be when they moved there.
With no sightings or updates, Kit's family is now offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to their whereabouts.
They would have just graduated on Saturday. They would be having their very first Pride Month as an adult. They would be, possibly pursuing their dream of being a paleontologist. They would be starting their life as an adult. And that's all things that I got to do, and I can't even say that they're gonna get to do it because I don't even know where they are.
We reached out to Omak police to ask about the status of their investigation and to find out whether Kit's mother is a person of interest in their case. We're still waiting to hear back. If you have any information about Kit's whereabouts, contact Omak police at 509-826-0383. For Facing Race, I'm PJ Randhawa.